Most riders only do oil changes and maybe clean their chain once in a while, but that is not nearly enough. If that is all you are doing, you might end up stranded on the side of the highway at 70 miles per hour with no protection around you, or facing a $10,000 engine rebuild that could have been avoided with a $50 part. Here is everything you need to know to get your motorcycle to run 100,000 miles or more with relatively little trouble. And a bonus tip at the end that will help you catch catastrophic failures before they leave you sliding into a guardrail. I'm Jimmy, and I run Fastest Way because someone needs to tell riders the truth about maintenance that dealers won't. What I'm about to share is what has worked for me and thousands of other riders who have put serious miles on their bikes without major problems. Let's get into it. Let's start with oil changes, and don't skip this section because I see riders screwing this up constantly. My first oil change on a brand new motorcycle is at 600 miles, not 1,000, not 1,500, 600 miles. Why? Because during the break-in period, your engine is creating microscopic metal debris from all the new parts wearing against each other. Piston rings bedding into cylinder walls, cam lobes wearing into lifters, transmission gears meshing for the first time. All that metal is sitting in your oil, and if you leave it in there, it's acting like sandpaper on every bearing surface in your engine. After that initial 600-mile change, I change oil every 3,000 to 4,000 miles maximum. I don't care what your dealer says. I don't care if your owner's manual says 8,000 or 10,000 miles. Those extended intervals are for warranty purposes and EPA compliance, not for making your bike last. Modern motorcycles use thin oils, 0W40, 10W40, and they break down faster under the extreme heat and stress of a motorcycle engine. A bike engine revs higher, runs hotter, and works harder than a car engine, and the oil pays the price. Here's what I do that most people don't, and this is critical. When I drain my oil, I actually look at what comes out. Is it still translucent and amber colored? Good. That means the oil held up. Is it black and opaque like coffee? You waited too long. Do you see metal flakes or glitter in the oil? You've got internal wear happening right now, and you need to figure out what's causing it before it becomes catastrophic. I also cut open my oil filter once a year and inspect the pleats. You just use a pipe cutter, slice through the canister, and pull the filter element out. If you see metal particles embedded in the filter media, you know something inside your engine is wearing prematurely. Cam bearings, rod bearings, piston rings, something is going wrong. And catching it early might save you from a total engine failure. Another thing I do is measure the oil that comes out. Let's say your bike holds 3 quarts of oil. When you drain it, you should get pretty close to 3 quarts out. If you're only getting 2.5 quarts, you're burning half a quart every oil change interval. That's not catastrophic, but it tells you something. Maybe your piston rings are worn, maybe your valve seals are leaking, maybe your PCV system isn't working right. Knowing your oil consumption rate helps you catch problems before they strand you. Number 2 is coolant flushes, and this is one of the most overlooked maintenance items that causes the most expensive failures. You should be flushing your coolant every 2 years or 24,000 miles, whichever comes first. Not every 5 years, not when it looks dirty, every 2 years, period. Why? Because coolant breaks down over time. It stops being effective at preventing corrosion, and when corrosion starts inside your cooling system, it eats aluminum components, clogs passages, and eventually causes head gasket failures or cracked heads. I've seen Honda VFRs with corroded water pump housings that started leaking coolant into the oil. I've seen Kawasaki Ninjas with clogged radiators that overheated and warped the head. All because the owner thought coolant was a lifetime fluid. Here's a real example. There's a well-known mechanic on YouTube called the Car Care Nut, and he showed a Toyota 5.7 liter V8, which is one of the most reliable engines ever built, that had a failed head gasket because the owner never changed the coolant. The old coolant turned acidic, ate through the metal head gasket, and caused a repair that cost over $3,000. If that can happen to a bulletproof Toyota truck engine, it can absolutely happen to your motorcycle. When you flush your coolant, don't just drain and refill. actually flush the system with distilled water until it runs clear, then add fresh coolant mixed to the proper ratio. Use the coolant your manufacturer specifies. Honda wants Honda coolant. Yamaha wants Yamaha coolant. They're not all the same, and mixing the wrong types can cause corrosion faster than old coolant. Number 3 is brake fluid flushes, and on a motorcycle this is not optional. You should be flushing your brake fluid every 2 years minimum, and if you ride in humid climates or do a lot of aggressive riding, every year. Brake fluid is hygroscopic, which means it absorbs moisture from the air over time. That moisture lowers the boiling point of your brake fluid, and when you're hauling down a mountain road hitting your brakes hard, that fluid can actually boil and create vapor bubbles in your brake lines. When that happens, your brake lever goes to the handlebar and you have no brakes. On a motorcycle, that's not an inconvenience, that's a potential death sentence. Old brake fluid also causes internal corrosion in your master cylinders, brake calipers, and ABS modulators. I've seen brake calipers seize up because the fluid was so old and contaminated that it destroyed the seals and corroded the pistons. A caliper rebuild costs $300 to $500 per caliper. A full brake fluid flush costs maybe $40 in fluid if you do it yourself. Here's how you know your brake fluid is bad. Pop the cap off your master cylinder reservoir and look at the fluid. If it's clear or light amber, you're good. If it's dark brown or has black particles floating in it, it's way overdue. Fresh DOT4 brake fluid should look like light-colored honey. Old brake fluid looks like used motor oil. If yours looks like oil, flush it immediately. When you flush it, start at the caliper farthest from the master cylinder and work your way back. Pump fresh fluid through until you see clean, clear fluid coming out with no air bubbles. Do this on both front and rear systems. And for the love of God, don't let your brake fluid reservoir run dry during the flush, or you'll introduce air into your ABS system, and bleeding ABS systems requires special tools and procedures that most people don't have. Number 4 is fork oil changes, and I would bet money that 95% of riders watching this have never changed their fork oil, ever. Even if you've got 50,000 miles on your bike. Fork oil breaks down over time from heat and friction, and when it breaks down, your suspension stops working properly. Your bike won't handle right, it'll dive too much under braking, it'll feel vague and wallowy in corners, and you won't even realize it's happening because it degrades slowly over time. You should change your fork oil every 20,000 to 40,000 miles, depending on how hard you ride and what kind of bike you have. Sport, bikes that see track days, every 20,000. Cruisers that see gentle highway miles, every 40,000. Adventure bikes that see rough roads and heavy loads, every 25,000. Changing fork oil isn't complicated, but it does require some basic tools. You need to remove the forks, drain the old oil, measure the correct amount of new oil, and reinstall everything. If you've never done it, pay a shop to do it the first time and watch what they do. Most shops charge $150 to $300 for a fork oil change, depending on the bike. That's cheap compared to the handling and safety improvement you get from fresh fork oil. And here's something most people don't know. Fork seals leak more often when fork oil is old and degraded. The old oil loses its viscosity, gets thinner, and seeps past seals easier. I've seen bikes that were leaking fork oil constantly, and after changing to fresh oil with the correct viscosity, the leaking stopped. New seals weren't even needed. Sometimes just fresh oil is enough. String number 6 is chain maintenance, and I see people screw this up in 2 ways. Either they never clean and lube their chain, or they clean and lube it way too much with the wrong products. Let me break down the correct way to do this. You should clean and lubricate your chain every 500 to 700 miles, or every time you ride in the rain, or any time your chain looks dry or dirty. Use a proper chain cleaner, not gasoline or kerosene, or WD-40. Those products strip the factory grease out of the O-rings and X-rings that seal the chain rollers, and once that grease is gone, your chain wears out 10 times faster. Use a dedicated chain cleaner like Maxima Chain Cleaner or Motul Chain Clean. Spray it on, scrub with a brush, wipe it off, let it dry. Then apply chain lube to the inside of the chain while you rotate the rear wheel. Here's where people go wrong. They think more lube is better, so they absolutely drench the chain in lube until it's dripping off. That's wrong. Excess lube just flings off the chain and coats your rear wheel, your swing arm, and your exhaust in sticky black crap that attracts dirt. You want a thin, even coating on the inside of the chain, not a puddle. Apply lube, let it sit for a few minutes to penetrate, then wipe off any excess with a rag. Chain tension is just as important as lubrication. Check your chain tension every 1,000 miles. Most bikes want about 1 inch to 1.5 inches of up and down play in the chain measured at the midpoint between the sprockets. Too tight, and you're putting stress on your transmission output, shaft bearing, and your swing arm pivot. Too loose, and the chain can slap against your swing arm or even come off the sprockets. Either way, you're causing damage. And here's the thing about chains. Even with perfect maintenance, they wear out. A well-maintained chain should last 15 to 25,000 miles. Once your chain is worn, you need to replace it along with both sprockets. Don't just replace the chain and keep the old sprockets. Worn sprockets will destroy a new chain in a couple thousand miles. Replace all 3 as a set. It will cost you $200 to $400 depending on your bike, and it is non-negotiable. Number 7 is your air filter, and this is probably the easiest and cheapest maintenance item that people still manage to ignore. You should replace your air filter every 10 to 15,000 miles, or sooner if you ride in dusty conditions. A clogged air filter restricts airflow to your engine, which makes it run rich, which fouls your spark plugs, which causes misfires and poor performance. A really clogged air filter can even cause your engine to suck in dust and dirt past the filter element, and once that happens, you are sandblasting your cylinder walls and piston rings from the inside. Replacing an air filter takes 10 minutes and costs $30 to $60 depending on your bike. On most bikes, you just remove the seat, pop off the airbox cover, pull out the old filter, drop in a new one, and you are done. There is zero excuse for running a dirty air filter. If you want to save money long term, get a reusable air filter like a K&N. They cost more up front, about $70 to $100, but you can clean and re-oil them every 15,000 miles, and they last the life of the bike. I have been running K&N filters on my bikes for years, and I've never had an issue. Just make sure you do not over-oil them, because excess oil can contaminate your mass airflow sensor if your bike has one. Number 8 is spark plugs, and the replacement interval depends on your bike. If you've got a naturally aspirated bike with iridium or platinum plugs, you can probably go 30 to 40,000 miles. If you've got a high-performance sport bike or a turbocharged bike, replace them every 15 to 20,000 miles. The harder your engine works, the faster plugs wear out. Worn spark plugs cause misfires, and misfires cause unburned fuel to wash oil off your cylinder walls, which causes accelerated wear on your rings and cylinders. Misfires also dump raw fuel into your exhaust, which can damage your catalytic converter if your bike has one. A set of spark plugs costs $30 to $80 depending on your bike. A new catalytic converter costs $800 to $1,500, do the math. When you replace your plugs, check the old ones for signs of problems. If they're black and sooty, your bike is running rich. If they're white and chalky, it's running lean. If one plug looks different from the others, you might have a problem with that cylinder's fuel injector or ignition coil. The condition of your spark plugs tells you a lot about what's happening inside your engine.